Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining. Today, we are talking all things retail media with our working group, and we've got some special speakers lined up to unpack the landscape, the opportunities, some of the challenges, and also how to start thinking about retail media as part of an integral media strategy. So with us today, we've got Tara Wilkinson, who's the Director of Retail Media and Marketing at Best Buy Canada. Hi, Tara. We have Melissa Savage, who is the Media and Ad Technology Head at Loblaw Media. And we have Lucy Baumgartner, who is the Managing Director of E-commerce Activation at OMG Media Group. So good morning, everyone.
Hi.
Morning.
All right.
Good morning.
Let's get started and talk about, we're going by Hollywood squares here. So the first square that I have is Lucy's. So I'm going to toss the first question for you to start with. And that is, what does retail media have in store for 2023? When you think about this year, we're well into the first quarter. What are things looking like? What are the opportunities? What do you think is getting some traction? And how would you describe the opportunity?
Sure, of course. Good morning, everybody. I think that there's a lot happening in lots of different places. And I know we've had a few conversations about this. But I think that 2023 is probably going to bring a lot more opportunities and products for advertisers to choose from. Firstly, DSPs coming out, self-serve capabilities, and there's all this invaluable data that retailers are sitting on, and I'm expecting a lot of new products to come out and ways for them to really monetize it. That doesn't mean that it won't come without some headaches for marketers. Obviously, more options, more ways to divvy up your dollars, but I do think it's going to be a very interesting year for testing and learning. And one other piece that I've slowly started to see a slight shift with some of the clients that we have within the Omnicom network is the definition. And when we thought about retail media in the past, it was always very much so that lower funnel sponsored ads, or retail search, as some might call it, components. And I think that we're slowly going to start to see that shift. There are upper funnel opportunities, and retailers also coming out with more upper funnel opportunities. And so I suspect that we're probably going to see advertisers and brands starting to take more of those testing chances and looking into how can you make the most of these products and still benefit from that closed loop measurement. I do think, just to wrap it up, we'll probably also see a lot of evolution with regards to targeting. So moving away from just off the shelf, thinking about personalization. And the other area as well that's a hot topic across the board on a continuous basis is measurement, and how can we improve the measurement, go beyond just the media KPIs and start looking at business KPIs as well.
Fantastic.
So 23.
That's a really great intro. Very strong. And are there? I know we're going to go into Q&A, but just a quick follow up. Are you starting to get a lot more curiosity from clients around this space?
Yes. My weeks tend to be full of calls and different conversations with different people. I think it's very interesting because we really see that brands are just in very different stages and set up in very different ways. So it definitely makes it even more so exciting and interesting, I think, to really be able to test things in different ways for different scenarios. But there is definitely a lot more interest. And I think that the fact that these DSPs and self-serve capabilities are coming out versus moving away from the managed service that used to be the historical approach in the market is, how would you say it? Forget my words, but really making the clients very curious into what can I do in this space? How can I approach it? How do I make it fit with my brand advertising as well? I think is a big question, right? Because retail media used to just be this small section, but now you've got all this media component that retailers are coming out with. So the interaction with them is changing as well. That's bringing new challenges. So definitely a lot of curiosity and a lot of questions in terms of how do I go about it and how do I make the most of it with everything else that I'm looking at as well.
That's great. Well, that's got to be music to the retail media providers. So why don't we switch to the sell side? And Melissa, do you want to give a couple of points on how you see 2023 unrolling for the retail space?
Yeah, I mean, kind of playing off a little bit of what Lucy said, obviously like self-serve and trying to enable our customers to be able to engage with our media easier and engage with our consumers a little bit with less friction. The extra part that we continue to see, and obviously with the data room conversation coming up later this week with the IAB, I'd be remiss not to mention, everybody's kind of trying to figure out this addressability conversation in, a cookieless world. What does that look like? You've seen news come out of the US from Albertsons and Disney and Omnicom on addressability and like CTV. So how does that kind of fit into the Canadian landscape as it continues to shift from this consumer privacy centric way? And we're also obviously trying to assess and really scale out a lot of our omni-channel experience for not only our shoppers, but for our media partners as well. So what does it look like to be able to reach in-store and online and make that seamless for both our consumers and our media partners? It's a really important piece that we're focusing on this year. And how does that look in a self-serve versus a managed service way? There's a lot of things that we're happy to discover and work with our partners on.
That's great, and that's coming from the grocery perspective, and as we as a group pulled together the Retail Media Guide, which is shortly to be released, there is a discussion on niched categories, and so Tara, it would be great to hear your perspective from Best Buy on what your views are this year and how the category is gaining traction.
Lucy covered it really well, but I absolutely agree with Melissa on the self-serve. And I think we'll see more self-serve capabilities from marketplaces as well, which tend to be smaller buyers. And so self-serve is particularly important. That's definitely a focus for us. The other thing that I think we'll see this year more broadly, is just better performance from retail media networks, because most retail media networks were only created in the last, say, 3-4 years, with a couple of exceptions, and they're very ad tech focused, media ops focused businesses. It takes time for retailers to learn how to be publishers and how to figure out for their own specialty retail media network what performs, what placements, what formats perform, what brands perform, and so forth. So I think this year we'll really start to see amazing performance from the ones that are really committed and have spent the time investing in the businesses. So I think that's pretty exciting. And then on the a few years ago, we saw this huge transformation from print to digital, and that fueled some of the growth in the retail media. But in Canada anyway, we haven't, I don't think, yet seen the full transition from linear TV to connected TV and digital media, video and so forth. So I think that is also a huge opportunity that we'll start to see this year. And retailers, I know for us, we're trying to figure out how we can really leverage our in-store TV networks and bring the same programmatic capabilities that we have from on-site now into the store. So I think that's going to be an area that's going to start to grow this year.
That's great. And, understanding that the supply side definitely, obviously is going to see some uptick as we get new entrants into the landscape. And, Melissa, you mentioned, clean rooms and first party data and addressability. I want to take it back to Lucy and get your view and perspective on that, and specifically on addressability and how advertisers are starting to manage their first party data, and whether or not there's, is the volume there from the perspective of the advertiser. Are they ready to use clean rooms? Are they ready to really leverage these kinds of first party data partnerships?
So like I was saying earlier, every client's at a different stage, but there's definitely a very big appetite for clean rooms. And actually, even, with Loblaws and some of the other vendors, it's a topic that I bring up very regularly to understand where we're at. Is it something that we can start exploring? I think that because it's so new, once again, people and clients don't necessarily know how to approach it, but they want to do it right. I think that within retail media generally, it's very fragmented, and there are a lot of walled gardens. And they want to know, well, where best do I put my dollars? Where best can I understand how my dollars are actually helping me achieve my goals? And so that's where clean rooms and tapping into this first party data comes in. I just think that there's no one way fits all, and there never will be. But I do think that everybody's still trying to figure out, well, what's the best way to actually do that. And I'm actually going to be joining the clean room session later this week, just because it is such a hot topic for us at Omnicom generally. So yes.
Yeah, that's great. And, it's probably comforting for advertisers to know, as well as the retail media landscape, just in general, to know that it's still in its infancy, right? Mm-hmm. Oftentimes when we have these discussions, you get, people breaking out in hives thinking that they've missed the boat, or that they're late to the party and that they're falling behind. But I think that that's a really great point. Now, I know that Loblaws has been in the game for quite a bit of time now. So I wonder, what does uptick look like, and what does growth look like for Loblaws, right? Like, is this, are you doing a lot of work, Melissa, on bringing people into the landscape? Are you bringing people into conversations around their comfort levels of using first party data, that type of thing? What kinds of things are you seeing that might drive uptick, or that might be helpful in adoption?
A lot of it is education. It's hard to see the US and try to kind of use the same framework in Canada. They're super different industries, and there's a lot more, compliance and privacy that we have to think about in Canada versus in the US. So there's obviously a lot of guardrails that we have to be careful of, I think, for everybody. Our priority right now is figuring out how do we partner with publishers in Canada to continue to get to be able to deliver addressability online, like in the future state, without cookies, right? And so we've been really focusing and bearing down on that piece and trying to build partnerships, because I think that's the only way that we're going to be able to move forward is collectively. And when that includes advertisers as well that we work with, that's awesome news, and we're happy to help where we need to, because like I said, there's a lot of education, and it's kind of scary when you look at it and you think, oh, this is huge piece that we have to think about now that we don't have experience with. And you know what, the resources in the industry have been great. There's a lot of people who have been through this phase in their business as well, not only in the US, but in Europe. And so we really just try to make sure that we are thinking about where the industry is going and keeping that in mind.
Yeah, in doing research on the guide, the stuff works, right? So all indicators are pointing towards the fact that this is an effective new channel. And Tara, I wonder, how is that a hard sell when you're talking to potential advertisers? Is it hard to demonstrate that? Is it a chicken and egg kind of conversation where you're trying to get them to test in order to show them the effectiveness, or are they coming in, guns a-blazing, all in on the channel? What are you seeing?
I don't think it's a hard sell at all. Our retail media network has grown double-digit last year, and we would project the same. So I think it's pretty undeniable now that it's really a top-performing form of commerce marketing, and it's really about learning for the individual brand how they can best leverage and what is the best vehicles within the retail media networks for them to use to achieve their objectives. Their objectives might change from year to year and so forth. So yeah, I don't think there's any other way, particularly in industries where the shopping journey is longer. Mm-hmm. And there's browsing and there's research and there's discovery to be had. There's pretty much no better place than to advertise than right when a customer is shopping and in a really receptive mindset. So we have just tons of enthusiasm from the brands that we work with on it.
Great. And, Tara, I'm going to stay with you for this next question about innovation. Obviously there's a lot going on in the space, and there's a lot of different tentacles to retail media. What are some of the things that you're seeing that have got you excited about what this could look like in the coming months in terms of, new opportunities?
Well, there's so many different things. There's all sorts of new ad products that are coming from different partners. So that's pretty exciting because that'll, bring innovation. I think there's retailers like us and others that are looking to add more experiential opportunities, which is really exciting for brands and leveraging the stores again in more intentional ways. So I think that's really exciting. There's more advancements in the platforms coming with self-serve. Another big advancement or that needs to happen, and there's a lot of pressure for it to happen, that Lucy touched on, was just to make it easier for brands to buy across retail media platforms, but also across products. So there's a lot of opportunity for the dots to get connected more, and for more advancements in audience targeting. So going beyond just like past purchase behavior into really advanced modeling techniques and leveraging that and expanding that into a larger audience pool. So that's interesting as well.
Yeah, it's really a double-edged sword, this, when you think about innovation and Lucy, I wanted to get your thoughts on that. New opportunities often help brands stand out. But, equally important is the fact that you need scale, obviously, to drive a proposition forward. So how do you manage the balance between, something that is like a new shiny object and something that is workable into a scaled solution for your advertisers? And, is there appetite to stand out right now, or is there appetite more for that lower funnel metric and the show me the money versus show me the creative opportunity?
It's a challenging question. Everybody's always going to want to, test the shiny object. I do agree, though, that scale is important, but also I think like where the role that it plays within the strategy. And I think that it's actually with all these new capabilities and products coming out, it becomes very easy actually for a brand to suddenly start spending money in different places that don't necessarily align back to what they actually want to achieve, or it might not necessarily meet the standards that they want to adhere to. So I think that the first point is really to understand, well, okay, this is a new capability. Yes, it's interesting, but based on our 3-year plan or our goals of what we want to achieve, does it actually fit in there? Does it actually make sense for us? And then if it does, and this is something that I always bring back to clients, is if we're going to test something, I want to make sure that we are testing it properly and we're giving it a chance versus having, for example, a tiny budget and running something for 4 weeks. Can you do it? Yes. Is it really going to showcase the product in itself and what it can deliver for you? No. So I think that, it sometimes then also becomes, well, are the funds available, yes or no? And is it something that we're going to push further down the line? But there are definitely sometimes scale challenges. And I have had opportunities where, for example, we tested something and we just weren't even seeing the scale and we're just pushing it back, which is not a great experience. So I don't really have a perfect answer. And I think that every opportunity and new product that comes out is new. So sometimes it will work, sometimes it will not. But I think that the first piece for me is really, does it actually fit with the overall goal that you actually have and in the mix that you have? And if it does, then comes the conversation of, okay, if we're going to do this, well, what is the right investment? And how do we test it out? And also making sure upfront that we really define what does success look like? Because I think that oftentimes, that's another trap that advertisers can fall into. It's like, well, I'm going to test this shiny new object, and then I'm going to figure out if it was successful or not. But you didn't actually define earlier on what is success in the first place. So,
right.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. That's a very robust answer and true to life, I'm sure. And Melissa, when you think about innovation and new opportunities that are emerging, what gets you excited this year?
Well, I mean, a little bit of what Lucy said. So really understanding our measurement models that we've that have brought us to this point. How can we evolve those to be more of a partnership based versus a campaign based concept? So we're rolling out with things like consumer lifetime value modeling. How can that play a part into your bigger planning? Making sure that we're actually accelerating business objectives for our partners and making the media buying a little bit more meaningful in that way versus just trying to, like Lucy said, run kind of a test campaign. You give a little bit of a budget, but you don't set out very clear goals, and so we don't learn anything on either side. And I don't think that helps anybody. And obviously, there's this other piece that I think Tara talked about a little bit as well, which is like leveling up the tech that we're using. And working towards things like standardization so that people can actually, move between a couple different retail marketers and understand what does success look against each other, and start being able to monitor the campaigns more effectively and integrate it into their media planning a little bit more successfully. So we're like, everybody is really focusing on improving that tech across the board. I think we see that globally. A lot of the partnerships that are coming into light with a lot of the CTV addressability, how can we scale reaching these audiences, especially in a world where like cookies may not exist, or we are trying to figure out how to address a first party audience across all platforms, where historically we haven't done that. So.
Yeah, it's funny. Oftentimes it's the age-old issue with online advertising in general, is that often the biggest innovations are the ones that are behind the scenes, like the geeky, nerdy ones that are not the shiny objects, that the people who execute on these campaigns get excited about because it's that missing piece or the missing metric or the dashboard or something, a set of standards even, right? That can really be a game changer for the space. Okay, so last question before we open it up to also just a cross open discussion is around we've seen some headlines being made now on holding companies and agencies emerging that are specifically designed to manage retail media. And I wanted to get your perspective on this because it's not just the holding companies. It's also, it's newly emerging independents, but it's also, one could say, agencies emerging within the retail marketer space, in the actual retailers. So Tara, do you want to handle that? Do you want to kick that off, that answer?
I think it just really depends on the retailer, on the brand, on how they interact with them. I mean, for us, for our core brands that we have deep relationships with, and our integrated businesses and partner marketing, we're really close, and we do co-planning, annual planning together. And it's not about in and out campaigns. It's really about a long-term, and we think about the priorities. We have all sorts of different tactics that we think that are foundational as well as campaigns. So in that sense, maybe not. But then there's other areas where you're looking at complementary brands and non-endemic brands where the agency plays a really important role, or where they're doing a massive brand campaign and it's integrated across all sorts of different tactics. Retail media is just one channel that they're using. Then I think the agency plays a really important role in figuring out the media buy and so forth. And then there's other areas where it might just be, focused on commerce marketing, and you see niche agencies that are just focused on the low funnel commerce marketing, and a particular brand might not want to be hands on keyboard, and someone needs to be. And so there's also a role for an agency. So I think the short answer, it really depends on the nature of the relationship and the specialty of it. But I'd love to hear Lucy's thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was gonna go straight to Lucy right after, just to ask what does it look like inside an agency right now and in the holding company environment?
Yeah, I think that Tara's response, which is it depends, is probably the best, because as I said at the start, there isn't one size fits all, and every client is different. I think that what we're seeing right now, or from my perspective anyway, is a lot of the clients that I'm engaging with are still very much siloed, where they'll have their trade or shopper teams, and you'll have your digital e-commerce teams, and then you might have your brand teams, when ultimately we're all trying to reach that one same consumer. And so I do think that agencies definitely need and will be developing that retail media specialism, because that's what's going to drive the excellence and the innovation and really bringing all of them together. And that's one of the reasons as to why, Omnicom launched Transact in September last year, to really help brands navigate this new world where media and commerce are starting to collide. I don't think that everybody's going to suddenly merge everything together and be absolutely connected from day one. It's definitely going to be a journey. But yes, it's definitely an agency category of its own. It's a big hot topic within holding companies, and I think that we're definitely going to see more and more kind of like commerce or retail specialists within companies. But I think that unlike, for example, when search or programmatic or social came out, I think that one of the big differences is that arm is not going to operate in silo. Rather, agencies as a whole need to be commerce enabled, and everybody within the organization needs to have some form of commerce fluency. And, some might have it more in depth than others. But I think that that's going to be a big difference. So you're going to have the specialists, but everybody else will, in my opinion, should still be able to talk about retail as a whole.
Yeah, you touched on something really important that I wanted to add as a follow-on question to you, and that is, most of the holding companies have pretty significant performance media agencies already, right? When you look at Performix or the Razorfit, like you've got these performance-based agencies that are resident within the holding environment. I wonder, is this a natural transition for them, or will they remain, do you think, in play as separate entities while transactional now becomes a thing? Or do you think that this is sort of a natural progression for performance media, and finally performance media has a title to it that everybody kind of understands? Because performance media was a little vague, but retail media feels like it's actually now going into a pretty defined direction.
I think that performance media is too narrow of a definition for retail media, to be honest with you. And so, buying an ad on, let's say, Loblaws or Best Buy or Amazon, yes, can be categorized as performance media. But I actually don't have the full answer. I just think that fueling that or putting that under performance is too narrow, because you've got the whole operation side and fulfillment and inventory and pricing and all these different components that can fall into it, which, a performance team just doesn't have exposure to, because it's all about those media KPIs. And I think that, as I said earlier, we need to shift towards the business KPIs as a whole. So how do we grow category share? How do we grow revenue, etc.? So I think that we'll probably see that some of those people under performance will start to move into retail. But I do think that there'll also be other skill sets coming in that agencies most likely don't have right now. So it's going to be hiring a different type of person with a different set of skills to come in and really complement the two, and then either leave the underperformance or create the separate arm. I think that, everybody can have their own opinion on that. But I think it is more than performance as a whole. So it will be in there, but it will be more.
I'm curious to hear Loblaw's view on this, and who the biggest touch points, what group represents the biggest client base for Loblaw? Is it client direct? Is it agencies? Do you think that agencies ought to form around this? What's your view on it, Melissa?
I mean, we've seen crazy growth coming from retail marketing, very similar to social and search previously. So I think everybody's learning what the right fit is. For us, we specifically have a lot more clients that are just brand direct, and they're like, how can we kind of amplify our in-store activities, or how can we amplify these new products we're bringing into market? And I think that's awesome. But I would also agree with Lucy that this isn't just lower funnel. How can we kind of drive that last little bit to conversion? I think it's really, how can we use our storefronts to make sure that we are amplifying it, including things like the signage in stores, the on-shelf work that we do, sampling. There's so many different pieces that kind of play into retail media that historically haven't really been within an agency. So I think it's going to be very important for agencies to understand what those missing capabilities are so that they can continue providing the expertise to their clients. And, being involved in those conversations, because I think it's super important for everybody to continue moving this forward and not just the retail media networks. Obviously, I think it's a joint partnership between our clients, our agencies, and the retail media networks to move forward and to improve this tech, to build standardization, and like Lucy said, to drive business objectives for our clients, because that's all we're trying to do at the end of the day as well, is how can we do that and measure them in a meaningful way for our clients.
That's great. This has been a really insightful conversation, and I'm so grateful for Lucy, Melissa, and Tara for the conversation today and for your insights on the space, and look forward to the release of the Retail Media Guide and further discussions with the working group as well.